In this video, we'll look at one of the most brutal defensive tactics you would ever see in modern football.
From the middle of the field, and have they tracked him down? Henderson was through there, and the goalkeeper makes a save, and Henderson can't finish it the first, second or third time. Adam can't either. He'll try again. It's Charlie Adam for Liverpool, and Begovic saves. And Jordan Henderson must be wondering how...
Inspired by veteran manager Tony Pulis during his time at Stoke City and also at West Bromwich Albion, the long ball approach has been frowned upon by many football lovers.
Every day is the same. Is it boring? Yeah, really boring. But it doesn't matter. Obviously, it's what happens out there that matters, isn't it?
They say it's ugly. They say it's not the right way to play football. Some football pundits even believe it's too negative. Well, it did help Stoke City to one of their highest Premier League finishes. However, in Football Manager, the match engine can prove difficult when you're trying to implement a style of play that isn't high pressing football. Can this long ball system thrive on Football Manager, and how? I'll be honest with you, choosing the right player roles and team instructions isn't enough to actually make this tactic work. So I did a bit of research as to why this system worked in the past for Stoke City and how Tony did it. Let's take a look. The space behind the fullbacks has become a key area of the pitch for teams that are looking to hit the opposition on the counter-attack. In particular, this area is where some big teams tend to struggle when they are playing against supposedly weaker opponents. The big boys like to get their fullbacks high and wide, getting forward, supporting the attack. The problem with this is the centre-backs on that team may not be well equipped to get out wide and defend those wide areas vacated by the fullbacks. Tony Pulis realized this early and came up with a solution to fix this fullback problem. His plan was to place strong central defenders as fullbacks and ask them to sit a bit deeper. This created a solid block of 4 central defenders that were very difficult to actually break down. With all that height and physicality, they are very capable of winning area duels and also dominating on set pieces. These fullbacks were almost like narrow centre backs with none of them crossing the halfway line. To succeed with this kind of system in Football Manager is nearly impossible. The 2 central midfielders were locked in place in what is famously known as the cage. None of them would break forward or even try to get into the box. I remember Charlie Adams sort of acted like a deep line playmaker for Stoke City at some point, but that is as much risk as Stoke were willing to take in midfield. The central defenders would try to hit long passes into the deep line forward that is playing ahead, or they would play simple passes to the wide players to continue the attack. The deep line forward in this system is key. He was a giant number 10, somewhat like a target forward but more of a deep line forward because he has a lot of freedom to create chances and also press the opposition's players. His strike partner was more of an advanced forward who would break the lines and try to run at the opposition's defense a lot more. On the right, he had a wide midfielder who was very capable of playing through balls into the advanced forward that was making runs into the box. He could also stay out wide and cross the ball from deep into the tall, deep lying forward that was somewhat a target forward. On the left hand side, it was somewhat a deep lying wide target forward. I know that's something you don't really see often on Football Manager, but on the left hand side, this player was capable of holding onto possession of the ball and then allowing the play to continue, and he could also arrive late into the box and finish off chances when the cross made it that far to the back post. Defensively, the strikers were key, especially the deep lying forward. This is where I started to think that the role was more of a pressing forward than a deep line forward because this player could actually hassle the opposition, and he was instructed to actually man-mark the deep line playmaker of the opposition team. This will force the opposition's playmaker to play long balls over the top, and you know that Stoke actually had the physicality and most of their aerial presence was dominant, so they could go ahead and win 90% of those balls in the air anyway, and then the play could continue from there. That's why it's crucial to have a very physical, tall, dominant squad to actually execute this system in Football Manager. Now, the team was very disciplined in the way they play. The only player that had some creative freedom was the advanced forward who could run into the opposition defense and then roam around and try to create chances for everybody else and finish off chances himself. This player was very responsible defensively and could actually hassle the opposition and go around pressing, trying to engage and win the ball back for the team. He could run all day and he could defend all day. But he wasn't the only one who contributed defensively. The wide midfielders were locked in on the opposition's fullbacks and asked to man-mark them as well. Out of possession, this created a double back four for Stoke City, where the central defenders formed the first back four, and then the central midfielders and the wide midfielders formed the second back four. As a team, their approach play was very simple. The goalkeeper would gain possession of the ball and then hit a long ball to the centre forward of the target forward. Similarly, the central defenders could be the ones to hit the long ball to the centre forward. Another approach was to play the ball to the wide men, who would be the ones to play the crosses into the centre forwards. It was a very simple approach that encouraged the team to get the ball from back to front very quickly. Out of possession, high pressing wasn't really a thing that most teams adopted, and Stoke City weren't any different. They kind of had a simple approach to defending, where they were going to stay in the mid block or a low block, try to defend their central areas, and then show the opposition to the wide flanks, inviting those crosses and knowing that they have the area presence to actually deal with the crosses. Tony Pulis' long ball tactic actually thrives on having the right physical players who can implement and execute the system. They don't have to be the best players in the world, but they have to be players that are superior in the air, strong, and can tackle a lot. So in Football Manager, I did go on to create two versions of the tactic, one of them for West Brom and the other for Stoke City. We're going to look at how both teams actually turned out, but this is the West Brom system. It's a flat 4-4-2, and for goalkeeper, I went for a standard goalkeeper on defend duty because the keeper wasn't really a sweeper keeper. He didn't really come off his line and try to sweep up those balls. The defenders were already really deep. And if you look at our back four, we had 4 central defenders, even though some of them in here are fullbacks, but they're all playing as fullback on defend or central midfielder or central defender on defend duty. Now, I'll be honest with you, in modern Football Manager, even on FM24, this is a criminal offense to actually go ahead and try this, but that's what we did, and the results did go on to show that we didn't really perform really well playing this system. And looking at what I asked the fullbacks to do, just to tackle harder, because I wanted them to try and engage the opposition out wide, even though we sent the ball that way. Both fullbacks actually have similar instructions, and the centre backs didn't have any instruction at all. I did have one ball playing defender, to be honest, and I think that's just to help with long balls, because I noticed that Stoke City tend to play a lot of long balls. We've talked about that before, so having a ball playing defender in there allows them to take more risk and then play those long balls to the centre forward. In central midfield, no need for a DLP. What we have here is a central midfielder on support duty, and this time he's going to take more risk, essentially acting like a DLP, but he's also going to tackle harder because you want the team to be aggressive and try to win the ball back when the opposition gets into this phase. Ball winning midfielder is the other player beside him. He's basically just going to defend just like everybody else. And at the wide right, we do have a wide midfielder on support duty. Often the player that is going to cross from deep is trying to find the far post cross either to the target forward, either to the winger that is coming on from the other side. He's going to take more risk, cross from deep, like I mentioned, and of course we force the instruction for him to mark the fullback of the opposition team because that is what we want. And if you look at the wide midfielder on the left hand side, he's a defensive winger. I chose the defensive winger because I wanted him to be a bit more aggressive and try to press the opposition rather than just being a conventional winger. The defensive winger is one that actually goes ahead. What you can see here is going to close down more and tackle very hard. So that's an inbuilt hard-coded instruction for him. So that's why I went for that role. He's also marking a specific position, and of course he's going to get towards the byline and try to cross the ball for the strikers. Now for our 2 strikers, I had Maja play as a deep line forward on attack duty. You can see he also has that roll from position, and of course the pressing forward instruction, which is to close down more and tackle harder instruction, has been included for the deep line forward on attack. That's what he's going to do, hassle the opposition. And the one instruction that I forgot to add, which I'm going to do now, is to ask him to mark specific position, which is the opposition's defensive midfielder. Either it's going to be on the left or on the right. Can go ahead and add that during game and then have and kind of observe the match and see what is happening. So we're experimenting on Football Manager, right? It's not really a meta tactic or anything. It's just a realistic tactic of what Tony Pulis was doing back at the time. Beside him, we have a more traditional target forward in DK, and DK is going to just be, tall guy, 6'2", and he's just going to be there and no other instruction, just hold up the ball and the ball gets to him. Essentially, he's the target for the goalkeeper, right? So if you go ahead and look at the goalkeeper's instruction, where is that you can find that in transition phase, you can ask the goalkeeper to distribute the ball to the target forward. So DK is going to be that guy. So in case the goalkeeper I want to do that, the goalkeeper is going to play that long kick. I forgot to also add that take long kicks. Take the long kicks over to the target forward, and he is going to be the one to win the header, hold on to possession of the ball, and then have somebody else come around him, and then the play can continue from there. Looking at the team instructions, balance mentality, I could have gone for defensive and cautious, but I just think balance is okay because we're going to play with a much more, let's say like a mid-block towards standard defensive line. More often pressing because I feel that the team was too stagnant in FM24. If you go on to play the standard press, they don't really do anything. The opposition just walks through you and goes ahead to score a goal, which doesn't really work for me. So more often trigger press was something that I noticed could work. If you have a mid-block, they'll start from here to start engaging the opposition and try to win the ball back. So getting stuck in is also important. If you notice, most of my players have the tackle harder instruction selected. And for in possession, what we did was to play with this slightly more direct passing and slightly higher tempo. I could actually drop the tempo down to standard because it didn't really make much difference, to be honest. Balance was already quiet enough the way Stoke normally play. So They're also hitting early crosses and also being more disciplined. Those are the only instructions that I added. And you can go for floated crosses, but in this West Brom team that we have now, because Football Manager, you have to consider the players that you have. Floated crosses is not going to work because not all of them are really tall. So I just had it on mixed crosses because some players are tall, some players are not. So let's look at the Stoke City team and see how that is very different from what I had here with West Bromwich Albion. With Stoke City, we did perform slightly better, but it's still not very good. It's kind of mid-table, so I just think it's the way the tactic is. And if you go over to the tactic instruction here, and then we can go ahead and see the roles and instructions that I wanted to select for Stoke City. Instead of having a flat back four of everybody defending, I had one fullback on support DT. Now the fullback is still going to tackle harder, but it was just for him to contribute to the attack a little bit. Ball playing defender on the left hand side and no nonsense centre back on the right. Now this is another criminal offense in Football Manager for me, but I had to try it because you never know really. Okay, so ball playing defender, of course, to launch those long balls, and then the no nonsense centre back as well to also launch long balls. But both long balls are quite different, right? One is going to be a bit more creative, while the other is just going to look to hoof the ball away from the defense and try to get it to somebody that is in the attack. The other player that is playing as a right back is a fullback on defend DT as usual, sitting narrower and then of course tackling harder. In defensive midfield, instead of a flat midfield, we had two defensive midfielders, one as a DM on support DT tackling harder, the other as a DLP on support also tackling harder. So instead of going for a central midfielder on support DT, I went for the DLP, and that's essentially asking the central midfielder to be a bit more creative and also hold on to the ball and try to be a bit closer to the central defenders and receive the possession and then try to continue from there. So it's a slightly different style of play, I know, but winger on support DT is playing on the right hand side. He's also going to mark the specific position like I mentioned. He's also going to take more risk and also cross from deep. So I'm trying to create that wide midfielder role in a winger because those are the kind of players that Stoke City actually had. So we're going to recreate the system. We're going to try to give them similar roles and then try to tweak the player instructions to help them recreate what Tony Pulis was doing at the time. So defensive winger stays here as well, mark specific position as usual, but he has all the instructions that I need, so no need to add any other one. For the strikers, I had the pressing forward on support coming here instead of the deep line forward on support or attack. Roving from position is the only instruction. Every other thing was now already selected. Close down more, tackle harder. And beside him, we had an advanced forward instead of a target forward to try and recreate that running movement that the advanced forward had in Stoke City, the player that had a lot of freedom to create chances and move around. Only moving into channels were the instruction that he needed, and that's all we had in there for him. Team instructions stayed pretty similar, balanced mentality, and of course, slightly higher tempo, slightly more direct passing. This time was shooting on side because I noticed my team wasn't really taking any shots. We're just kind of in the middle, not doing anything, or with much more defending. That's what I kind of call it. So, in order for us to counteract that passive nature that we had, shoot on side kind of helped us get the ball quickly. You could also go ahead and add the hit early crosses instruction in here as well if you want. In transition this time we see distribute the ball quickly selected, but you can also go ahead and ask the goalkeeper to take long kicks because again with these long kicks you need to make sure you have tall players. If you don't have tall players, it's not going to work. It's why most of the time I kind of left it off and then allowed the goalkeeper to do what he wanted. You would see here that out of possession we played in the low block with the standard defensive line, but also the trigger press was slightly more often, and then get stuck in is also selected. Goalkeeper, like I mentioned, here is actually a super keeper on sport DT because I was trying to create that counter-attacking style of play rather than just a low block defense not doing anything. So that's why I had a super keeper on support DT. He could have been on defend or a standard goalkeeper on defend, either way, but I think super keeper on support was what I went for here. That's what I'm sharing with you. So I'm just going to, or super keeper on support is what I went for here. So that's what I'm sharing with you guys. So this was basically how I went about creating Tony Pulis' system. If you have any other contributions that you can go ahead and make to the system to make it better or anything closer to what Tony Pulis was doing, do let me know in the comment section. I can go ahead and make those tweaks and continue the save. We're still in August for Stoke City, and I think West Brom are currently in October or the end of September. So we can go ahead and make those tweaks and then see how that comes out. And if there's any improvements, I'll probably go ahead and make another video for that, and then you guys can go ahead and see how that turned out. So that's it for now. Let me know what you think.